This video is going to be a real experiment. Everyone ends up with these massive overgrown zucchinis, right? And you're like, well, I am so overloaded with zucchini, what am I going to do? I'll just give it to the chickens or something. But don't do that. I'm trying an experiment today, and I want to make sure that everyone understands this is an experiment. This is not something I have done in the years past, so check it out, research it yourself, make sure you're comfortable with it before you duplicate, okay? All right. Zucchini is not normally canned because, number one, it becomes mush. And number two, if you want to can it for less time, then it's not safe because it's a low acid food. So the solution would seem to either increase the acid so that you can reduce the time or deal with mushy zucchini. I like my zucchini to be breaded and fried. So I'm trying a recipe that somebody gave me, and we are going to be adding acid to like a light brine, and when we go to use the zucchini, we will be rinsing off the brine and then battering it to fry. So important things that you want to keep in mind for this recipe. Number one, wide mouth jars. You don't want to fight the zucchini when you're pulling it back out. So wide mouth jars. And this recipe specified apple cider vinegar instead of white vinegar. And I think that that's because it's a more mellow flavor and it's not going to taste like you pickled your zucchinis quite as much. The acidity is still 5%, so make sure you have that right. And it does have salt and sugar in it. And I do think that both of those are going to be important for the flavor in the recipe. So there's a lot of tweaking that you can do with recipes oftentimes, but if I was a new person trying this, I would try it as is and focus on learning the basics before you go off the rebel deep end. Okay, so that's my only disclaimer. If you're not used to canning, then learn the basics first. If you are ready to rebel on, come along. I'm starting with this monster zucchini. Feel free to start with whatever zucchini you have, but if you want whole slices, make sure it'll fit into your jar. Alright, I'm using a shot glass to cut out the overgrown seeds on the inside. Yes, I could totally save these seeds for planting, but they're actually going to go to my chickens. I'm going to wedge these in, and with that hole cut out, it makes it easier to fit them in the jar. Now I doubled my brine, but here's the recipe for the original. 9 cups of water, half a cup of sugar, and half a cup of apple cider vinegar. For quarts, you will be adding a teaspoon of salt. And I'm lazy and I only want to wash dishes once in a while, so I'm using half teaspoons twice. You can see that I had to cut some of my zucchini into slices and chunks. That's just fine as long as the slices are about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch wide. Now I'm going to be pouring my brine in until it covers the zucchini, so right up to the bottom of that last band. I don't normally worry about debubbling my canned foods, but because this is packed so tightly, I did make sure that there wasn't a whole bunch of air gaps in there. And I also debubble by kind of bumping the bottom of the jar to force the air up. We're going to load them all up into a water bath canner. Make sure that the water is above the lids and all that stuff. And we're going to water bath for 10 minutes. Needs a little bit more water, so I'll adjust that and I'll get canning. And here they come, fresh out of the canner, processed for 10 minutes. We're going to let them sit out 12 to 24 hours, and I'm going to keep an extra special eye on this and let you know how they turned out after a day or two to make sure that the seals stayed and all that. Thanks for rebelling with me. All right, it's been a couple days since I canned the zucchini because I wanted to give it a fair shot to make sure that it didn't immediately unseal. And nothing has unsealed. It still looks, not like fresh zucchini because it's canned, but it still looks like it's all in one piece. And if I'm careful when I drain it, I'm sure that I can get full pieces out. So I should be able to bread and fry them, no problem. And yeah, it looked like it was a pretty good recipe and seemed to be successful. But always check, make sure, research, do your own research before you duplicate any of the recipes you find here. And happy rebelling. God bless.